The Battle of Verdun began on February 21, 1916, when the German army launched a massive attack on the fortified town of Verdun, located in northeastern France. The German objective was to break through the French lines and take control of the town, which was strategically located near the border with Germany. But the French were determined to hold on to their positions, and what followed was one of the bloodiest battles in human history. The German plan was to launch a massive offensive against the French lines using a combination of artillery, infantry, and new technologies such as flamethrowers and poison gas. The Germans believed that they could break through the French lines and capture Verdun in a matter of days. But the French had other ideas. General Philippe Pétain was in charge of the French forces, and he was determined to hold on to Verdun at all costs. On the other hand, the German army was being commanded by General Erich von Falkenhayn, who was determined to capture Verdun in order to reach Paris, the capital of France. The initial German assault was fierce and relentless. The French lines were pounded by heavy artillery, and the German infantry advanced with flamethrowers and poison gas. The French troops were caught off guard and suffered heavy casualties. But they held on, and in the days and weeks that followed, the battle became a war of attrition. The French strategy was to hold on to their positions even if it meant sacrificing their soldiers in the process. The German strategy was to inflict as many casualties as possible on the French, even if it meant sacrificing their own soldiers. The result was a stalemate that lasted for months. One of the key events of the battle was the capture of Fort Douaumont by the Germans on February 25, 1916. Fort Douaumont was a heavily fortified position that had been considered impregnable by the French. However, due to a miscommunication among the French troops, the fort was left virtually unguarded and the Germans were able to seize it with minimal resistance. The loss of Fort Douaumont was a major blow to the morale of the French army, as it was a key position that provided artillery support and observation over the surrounding area. The German army quickly reinforced the fort and used it as a base for their operations. Over the following months, the French army launched several unsuccessful attempts to recapture Fort Douaumont, suffering heavy casualties in the process. However, on October 24, 1916, the French finally succeeded in retaking the fort, thanks in part to the use of improved artillery and tactics. The recapture of Fort Douaumont was a major turning point in the battle, as it restored the confidence of the French troops and allowed them to launch a counter-offensive against the Germans. The French army was able to push the Germans back and regain much of the ground that had been lost earlier in the battle. The Battle of Verdun was significant for several reasons. First, it was a turning point in the war. Before Verdun, the Germans had been winning the war, but after Verdun, the tide began to turn in favor of the Allies. The battle was also significant because it demonstrated the horrors of modern warfare. The use of new technologies such as flamethrowers and poison gas had a devastating effect on the soldiers and the civilians caught in the crossfire. Despite the heavy losses on both sides, the French were ultimately able to hold on to Verdun. They were able to bring in fresh troops and supplies, while the Germans suffered from lack of resources and manpower. The French also had the advantage of being on the defensive, which allowed them to conserve their resources and wear down the German army. The end of the war came in November 1918, when the Allies launched a massive offensive against the German army. The German army was exhausted and demoralized, and they were unable to withstand the assault. The war ended with the signing of the Treaty of Versailles, which officially ended hostilities between the Allies and Germany. The Battle of Verdun was a major turning point in World War I. It demonstrated the horrors of modern warfare and the toll it takes on soldiers and civilians alike. It was also significant because it marked the beginning of the end of the German offensive. The French were able to hold on to Verdun, and this gave the Allies a much needed boost in morale. The battle will always be remembered as one of the bloodiest and most brutal battles in human history, but it will also be remembered as a testament to the resilience and determination of soldiers who fought there.